So I'm always looking when I get in business, how do you disrupt? Which means I'm going to ruffle some feathers, which means I'm going to have some naysayers, which I'm going to have people go, I don't understand what you're doing. That's the wrong way to do it. And you have to be able to put your blinders on and say, I believe in this. I've done the research. I've mitigated those things. But the toughest thing I've found as an entrepreneur is getting the buy-in.
Welcome to The Roll Call, the podcast where we dive into the roles that define us. I'm your host, John Glahn. On each episode, we explore the journeys of people discovering their true roles in life, business, and beyond. Get ready for inspiring conversations about finding purpose and authenticity. Let's roll the roll call. Hello, welcome to The Roll Call. I'm John Glahn. I have with me Herman Moore, the legend of Detroit, all-pro Detroit Lion, College Football Hall of Fame. Anyone here in Detroit knows what the heck that means. I grew up outside of Detroit. I grew up in Indiana. I didn't grow up a Lions fan, but I sure knew it when you beat the hell out of my Packers. I'm now a Lions fan, so it's okay.
Yeah,
but
that's awesome.
All are here and accounted for. Welcome to The Roll Call.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Herman, I didn't expect this to happen, to have you sitting across the table from me. So I have a good friend, Dylan England, to thank for that. And I have you to thank for this beautiful space that I get to use for this podcast today. So thank you. I want to make sure that we hit on, and I'll tell everyone else, I'm trying to not have a jock sniffing moment. I recall playing at a certain golf club years ago, and one of the policies when you got an email, I was a guest, and they said no jock sniffing. So I take that really personally to make sure that those that walked in and did amazing things athletically, because I worship athletes and premier athletes. So I'll stay on this side, and I'll not act like a high schooler. That's all right. Actually, I might.
No, you don't have to do that. I appreciate you having me in and taking some time to share some thoughts and speak with you directly. And Dylan is a great guy. Got to know him.
Yeah.
Young entrepreneur. I'm very much in that space, and I love talking to people who have a destination. And that's what I told him. I said, if you have a purpose and a destination, you have my attention.
Awesome. Well, and that's where I want to take it to, right? I want to look in the rear view, high fives about, what you've been able to do athletically. And then I want to transition to what you're doing today and the impact you're making today. Not just here for us proud Detroiters, but in every other place in the business world. So for those that don't know, how's that transition been from being the athlete to where you are now?
In certain areas, it's been pretty good. It's been fluid. It's been somewhat predictable in some spaces. But I think the biggest challenge that I've endured that I don't think a lot of people realize is the challenge of perception of being the athlete so long. And then when you go into the business space, the expectations are a little different. But it was surprising because you're looking for more of mentorship. You're looking for people that will guide you. But you got everything from those that are looking for you to fail to those that are more threatened by the fact that you're getting into the space, or some that may question your business acumen or your ability to compete in that space because they feel that, the doors are made a little bit easier for you. But I think what people fail to realize with athletes is that that stigma, that perception is hard to shake. And I'm still 20 plus years later being in business, right, having to shake that. And it's made the road a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. I think I can see others who will win a lot easier because they're coming in with more of an unknown versus when you come in as an athlete and you have to break down some preconceived thoughts and mentalities that exist, whether it be from past time or whenever. And it just is a little bit more challenging than I would think what people realize. Now, some are anointed. I will say that some are anointed, and the road is a lot easier. But for some of those who are willing to be unconventional, non-traditional, and pave their own way and try and interrupt or disrupt industries with innovation, sometimes isn't always as welcome.
Wow, that's interesting. Because you hear, from inside business, outside business, and can be localized, can be nationalized, but right, I think most people would think, it's got to be the easier path to take, right? Most would, until you sit in that space of the egos that you're walking into.
Right.
And I'm imagining using different terminology, but trying to knock you down a peg a little bit, right? Yeah, you're not coming in here and taking over, right? You got to take your place first.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you talk about that space. It's not about you, and you don't walk in saying, okay, I'm here. Everyone bow down and do those things, as much as you're just trying to say, listen, I'm transitioning. I'm hoping I'm going to be welcomed into this space. And what you realize that the team camaraderie and those that you work with aren't always necessarily the ones that want you to win. And I don't say that for any other reason, because I've had some tremendous people who have supported me in my football career, my education, the University of Virginia, my school teachers, educators, pedestrian people, regular ordinary people who have sown into me that a lot of people may not know their names, but I know the impact that they've had on my life. And then some of those that have paved the way prior to me getting into business, who were former athletes, and looking at kind of what their journey looked like and to get there. But you're dealing with people that everyone's got their own reason and rationalization and their cage that they will put you in. And if you are a person who comes with that type of confidence a lot of times can be the thing that works the most against you.
Yeah.
And it's like you try and find the balance, because you want people to see that you're confident in what you do, that you're sure, you're very sure of who you are and what you're trying to attain, without being a put off or turn off. But at the same time, you're trying to instill in them that, you have someone who's dedicated and passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
So it's taken me time to continue to find that balance, because I'm coming from a sport where you have to be confident. You have to be assured of who you are and what you're going to get accomplished. And sometimes that can rub people, if they're not built for that in the business world, it can fracture their ego because it's too strong.
Oof. Man. And it is all ego. Right. How about, what was your first venture?
Gosh. So I always tell people, how much time do you have? How do you want to unpack
all night,
that?
Baby?
So my first venture into that, short of me growing up in the housing projects and watching my mom be an entrepreneur, single parent, and understanding how she did the side gigs and the jobs to kind of make ends meet. Once I was done playing, I wanted to get into franchising. The first business I got involved with was Mailbox, etc. And at the time, they were on the top 500 fastest growing franchises, or top 50 or something like that. Maybe in the number one growing franchise at the time. It was in 2001. And I did that for about a year, 2 years, ran it. It was cool. Then it got converted to the UPS store. Then I ended up selling that to another husband and wife who were more passionate, because I realized, shipping and packing and those things, it really wasn't the thing I thought I would want to do. Went from there into Cinnabon, became a franchisee, owning all of the Michigan market and all of the Florida market. About a year and a half after that, became one of their largest partners to a publicly traded company that was a national global brand.
You became my wife's best friend.
Hopefully she's not wearing all those cinnamon rolls, because they were packing a lot of calories. But great product, great team of people, and from there started to figure out other franchises. Stayed in the franchise world for a while. Dabbed into everything from smoothie concepts to offset what I was doing with the saturated fat and the high cholesterol products. And then I started, because that was the wave of the Jamba Juice and all those things. So I went to combine that, and then went from there into pizza. Pizza's probably, anyone who knows me knows that's one of my favorite foods. Got into a pizza franchise as well. And then got into coffee, which I'm an avid lover of coffee. And started with franchising, becoming a franchisor, and then eventually getting into the roasting side of it. So it's this whole journey. So when I tell you I go in.
Yeah.
And in any of those different systems that we've just talked about, there was innovation and impact that I was seeking in those, because that was just my DNA. It's to come in, you see what's there, you problem solve, you try and get the best, you try and get to the level of greatness, or being at the summit of whatever it is that you do. And sometimes people are, okay with being average, and again, it becomes a rub.
Yeah, right,
right.
Yeah, especially again I'm not sure at what level you're speaking to, but certainly in that retail space,
Right.
you're not going to get everyone that's charging forward like, let's go be the best, right?
Right.
So,
right. A little bit more difficult because of the wages that you offer. You're working within a structured system that has certain things that are already in place. So it's a balance, and then that's when you get into, as you know, we could talk even later about, it's like the leadership side of it. How do you keep people motivated and learning HR, understanding systems, understanding intellectual property, and all these things. So there's a lot of things that you can take away from being an independent business owner versus being an employee of another entity where you only focus on one thing.
Yeah. So in those days, how were you managing? Because you, like you said, you went in. You didn't like, hey, we're going to start one store. We're going to do this. Like, it sounds like you went in with multiple stores. How did you go about managing those? What was your role back in that day?
Well, it was tough, and I was looking for something to do. I'm going to be early 30s, 31, 32, whatever it is, and that's going to be a little too early to retire. And it's just basically you leaving one career and you're getting into a different one. And at that point, as I transitioned, I was looking for something that would be complementary to myself in terms of passion, because that's what's going to sustain us. The other one was, how does it provide other opportunities for others? Because I want to be unselfish in what I do. I want to grow people. I want to have teams of people that I work with. So I vetted it that way so I could find systems that would kind of fit me. And then also I needed, because this was my first venture in getting into business, how do I get in there where there's structured systems and there's standard operating procedures that are kind of hard-coded for the most part, so it provides discipline. And that's what brought me into that world. But it was brought between, I had an attorney who introduced me to some people he knew in that space. And then ultimately they led me down the path to someone they knew in Cinnabon, which at that time was AFC Enterprises, a publicly traded company. And that was my first getting in there. And then they put all the infrastructure around me. And again, I always tell people, they say, well, what would you change if you could do differently? I would have probably paused for about a year or two and become a little bit more educated in all the different parts of being a business owner at the entrepreneur level, and what the accountability and the responsibility that comes with that, especially if you're a new business owner, because I'm taking on quite a big endeavor. Did well with it for the first 4 or 5 years before the economy started to change. But there were some lessons that were truly learned that would kind of shape me going forward in terms of how to operate.
Yeah, and a lot of times, most of us, we learn by being in the fire. Right. Yeah. At least me, my mental capacity is I gotta skin my knee to know not to do that again. Right. And there aren't mechanisms like, again, you have a college degree. Well, I do too. That didn't really teach me how to run a business. Right. And actually, your degree wasn't in business, right?
No, it was in marketing and communications.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so how are you supposed to know how to run a company? Right.
Other
than just jump in and go.
Pretty much. And it's something I think you have to have that in you to want to get in and go do that. However, you can't skirt the educational side of it. You can't skirt the process of learning it through and through, right? It's got to be down to the granular level, unless you're going to rely on other people to handle those types of operations. And what I found is that I'm a very hands-on person. I like to be in the know. I like to understand all the components of what I do. Some people may say that's micromanaging, but it isn't. It just allows me for a streamlined level of communication, which I know when I'm speaking to people, we're on the same wavelength, and I don't have to have it translated by someone else. And there's an appreciation to that subject matter expert when you can at least talk to them at a level of interest versus them just talking at you. Mm-hmm. You can talk back, you can have dialogue, you can have an opinion. And if you're a business owner, one thing I've found is you have to know your business. Mm-hmm. You have to know, and you got to know it better than everyone else.
Yeah.
If you're going to lead from the top.
That's where I was really wanted to get to, right? Because from how do you, in that franchise world, depending on the franchise you're jumping into, some of them want you to be the owner, the operator, living in and dying in it. Almost like, the Chick-fil-A, right? You can only be it if you plan to be there every day, all day, because that's what they want. Versus others, you can buy the system and however you manage it. So was there a little humble pie? Going in and running, coming in like, hey, I'm going to go run some retail, like to get to know the business, right? You got to be down in it making the stuff, right?
Right. The biggest, see, I'm come from a world where I got humbled already in football because I came in, I was a number one receiver coming out in the NFL draft, first receiver taken, and my first year was a disaster. Barely touched the field. I had 11 catches, 135 yards, no touchdowns, and only got to start because the starting guy went down before our playoff game. And I just got another bite at the apple of opportunity, and that was to go in and make it happen against Dallas in our playoff game. And even though I was the number one receiver coming out, and I was probably arguably at that time still the best receiver on our team, you still got to put in the work. It's down to the detail. And so I brought that mentality over into franchising, where I was willing to go into the bakery, work the register, check in like everyone else, put on the apron, get behind the sneeze guard, roll the rolls at midday, at noon, at Great Lakes Crossing Mall with all the people there looking at me like, why is Herman Moore behind that glass rolling cinnamon rolls? And then having my manager come over and tell me, these didn't rise right. You got to throw them away and you got to do them over because that product isn't good enough. It isn't quality of the standards that we set. So in doing that, the humble pie, I was ready for that. But what I wasn't ready for, and this is what I think a lot of business leaders, especially if they come from a place of discipline and levels of higher expectation, is that people were willing to settle for mediocrity, that they weren't willing to be great. And they thought that the distance between mediocrity and great was this unattainable thing versus it's a very small thing. It's internal. It starts with the self. You're not relying on someone else to help you get there. These are things that you mentally have to bring and physically have to bring every day that you control. And that was probably the biggest eye-opening letdown that I had, is that people were willing to do it for whatever the purpose was, but it wasn't for, at the end, to build them the better person and say, job well done at the end of the day.
Yeah. Wow.
It was weird.
Well, I got it, putting it back to, you were surrounded by 10 plus years, well, and plus college is not dissimilar, of people they were like, they got up and ate greatness every day, right? And had to be to, either it's to keep their job or to jump, in the world of NFL, like if you're not striving to be great, we don't have time for you, right?
Right.
So you're surrounded by that for how long?
Yeah.
And you probably come in, is that the expectation? Like, isn't everybody wired that way?
Right. And that was the thing. I think I was naive in thinking that I've seen how people operate in the sports world. I think that's why I talk to some people and I go, have you ever played sports? So I'm not decoding them, but I'm understanding their level of discipline. Do you have responsibility of some type of responsibility that you can't break? And if you don't do it, there's going to be consequences. And I come from a place where in sports and in the world, you can't call in and go, not today, I'm sick. I can't go to practice. And if you did, you had to answer to someone. And there was something that was going to cost you. And if you had to work through it, you had to work through it. So there's just some different things, that when it comes to sports, and I don't even try and equate it to like military life. Mm-hmm. But when I look at military, because I come from a family of a lot of military people and vets and stuff like that, the level of commitment that is required is not for everyone. And so trying to find those right people is what you see, the volatility in the workplace. And again, that got me into a whole nother business later in life, which was dealing with HR and recruiting and stuff like that, and trying to help companies find those right people. And that became, only 5-6 years ago. I wanted to get into that space, but just starting to realize, everyone's not, I don't want to say they're not made different, but they have the same capabilities, but they just don't act on them for some reason.
Yeah, I want to come back to that because I want to imagine what that was like, again, back, people going, that's Herman Moore back there. I can just imagine, your early 30s at that point, right?
Yeah, early 30s. Yeah. And back there rolling rolls, man, and just, in the room, and they were sending me, putting icing on the rolls and going around sampling. That was a big thing. I even telling people, they were going out in the mall and having to walk up to people and go, would you like to try a sample of our new product or this cinnamon roll? Because we would only keep it there for so much time before we'd have to either throw the packs away or something like that. So instead of throwing them away, we made sure we would sample them. That way you don't have product waste and so on and so forth,
Marketing,
right? And it's marketing and it's impressions. And then that could make or break you too, because if the person who is the delivery system asking about doing the sampling isn't smiling, isn't courteous, isn't cordial, isn't wanting to really make you feel like we need your business and we would appreciate it, they could hurt your business with a frown, going out and just going, you want to try this roll? You don't want, or not being enthusiastic about the brand, and they're now a direct representation and representative of that brand. And again, those are the things that I've learned through sports. And now this new wave that we call NIL, I think people are looking at it in two different spaces. I won't, digress and go all over the place, but even with that, I started looking at us. We're all brands. Yeah. Think of yourself as a brand, as an individual. Mm-hmm. And I try and tell my employees, I try and tell my team members, we're a team, but you're all a brand represented within there, right?
Yeah. You're not Cinnabon. You have your own, but tight.
Right.
So, how did you find? How did you effectively get everyone down at the lowest levels, rowing in that direction, to have that smile and that to go do it in that way?
First and foremost, if you're going to be a leader, it's leading by example. It's going in and doing those things the right way. I know we come from a society, we come from a world. It is not fair. It's taken me still 20 years later, and even in my early 20s, my 30s, you're still wanting to have that wide eye. Right's going to always win. Right doesn't always win. You can do all the right things and be sitting at the bottom. I experienced that. And you can do some things that you should do better. And if you cut corners, you will pay the price for that. So to reach the ones that are at the bottom, it's more or less going, listen, from the top, I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to do something at the bottom that doesn't exist for the same responsibility and role and accountability at the top. And when I can show that, then it definitely will go from there down. And from there, you also provide value. You have to let people know how valuable they are in a business. It doesn't matter your role. If you're the person that's cleaning, being clean and having a very clean and sanitized and presentable space not only keeps us attractive to the customer, but it shows that we care just as much as putting a nice product up there. If I put a nice product up there that has all the love and care, but then that counter is dirty and clean, it's got soda stains or coffee stains that were dripped there and no one kept about, and receipt paper on the counter, it kills the presentation. You've just done something to offset what another team member took a lot of time and pride into doing. So we show a level of everyone is equal in terms of importance. And so you create culture and you create the expectation and standard. And that was my biggest hurdle, and I spent 6 years trying to do it. And it took a lot of having to obviously get rid of people. But it wasn't because I wanted to let them go. It's because they chose and showed that they didn't want to be there, and definitely not do it at the standard that would be acceptable for what we're paying. We're not paying for that substandard. We're paying you for your best, and you made the decision to accept it. So please reciprocate and give us back that effort. It's as simple as that. Keep it simple.
Yeah, awesome. I want to go to the coffee side of things, and if you'd be willing to reshare some of the story you were passionately telling a little bit back. I don't know if it'll ruffle any feathers or not, but if talking about seeing things that others don't, and circling that back to what you were talking about, right? In that coffee space, what are you trying to do that's disruptive? And maybe a few years ago.
So to give you the full story on the coffee, and I was sharing a story with you about my passion for coffee. One, I wasn't a long-term coffee lover or anything like that. I came into the NFL 91, hadn't had coffee, but I loaded up a ton of powdered cream that was the sweetener, and with a little bit of the regular old locker room coffee, right? Just the managers, the equipment people are making the coffee. They're putting it on the little thing in the back and just letting it sit there all day. You don't know. And we would have it before the meetings. And as I got to going longer in life, I started to get away from just, I wanted to get into the gourmet side of it, or get into some really specialty beans, Arabica beans and stuff like that. And in Cinnabon, one of the biggest products was coffee. And it was by Seattle's Best Coffee, which at the time was the second largest premium coffee to Starbucks. And it happened to be owned by the same organization and parent company that owned Cinnabon, which they owned Church's Fried Chicken, they owned Popeyes, Dunkin' Donuts. So they had their familiarity with coffee. So I carried that through my store, and then eventually I got permission from them because I said, wouldn't it be cool if I could start my own coffee brand within my own concept because of the affinity that people would have with me? So I started my own coffee brand. Got permission from the franchisor to let me sell my own coffee in my own cups and my own branding inside of my own Cinnabon stores. At the time, we had, I think, about 20 stores. And so that was my initial splash in the coffee. Fast forward, once I was done playing, I went through a couple other different trials and tribulations of different things I was trying to work on and businesses. I came back to coffee. I was on a plane flying from a Super Bowl, and I think it was in California or Arizona. And trading card companies give me cards to sign. And I just happened to have a cup of coffee beside me, and I had an epiphany. And I said, what if I were to take this bag, which is really just a blank canvas, put some type of a sports spin to it, and then call it something else? And I came up with a collectible coffee type bag and beans for a cause and all these things. And in there, I put a hero shot of a player, which would be the big part of it. A certain profile roast, like a Legends roast, a Hall of Fame roast, a team roast, whatever it may be. Put the picture of that player like a trading card does on the back with their full face from underneath the helmet, a nice little bio, a side profile panel. And I started to turn that bag and kind of marry the world of sports in with coffee, and came up with that concept. And then from there, give it the aesthetics, give it the marketing and the branding and everything else around it. And now you're innovating and you're becoming, and I always tell this, and people, when I tell them, I said, the analogy I use is you become the yellow suit in a sea of black suits. People go, who is that in that yellow suit?
Right.
And they start to pay attention. It doesn't matter where you move. If you watch, no matter where you walk, the yellow pops and you see it everywhere versus everyone that's moving in the black. That's what happens when you get oversaturation in the market. So I'm always looking when I get in business, how do you disrupt? Which means I'm going to ruffle some feathers, which means I'm going to have some naysayers, which I'm going to have people go, I don't understand what you're doing. That's the wrong way to do it. And you have to be able to put your blinders on and say, I believe in this. I've done the research. I've mitigated those things. But the toughest thing I've found as an entrepreneur is getting the buy-in. But I did get the Lions to buy in. They didn't buy any of the coffee, even though they gave me the license. And that's always tongue in cheek with them. I always laugh because they had another license with another vendor. And then eventually, after I realized I got my license, I couldn't sell my coffee in the stadium. It kind of imploded that. Yeah. But because I owned the trademark, I ended up just holding back on it. And I said, I'll release it at a different time. And then same thing happened with, doing other things. So it's just when one thing after another. So you build basically a little holding chest of intellectual property. I start to understand the value of intellectual property when you go into spaces. So that's how I got into coffee and got into learning how to do master roasting, testing the coffees, learning all the single origins, the difference between that and doing blends, which blends work best, price points, buying them, raw, beans and burlap sacks and stuff, sacks like that when you have to buy them ahead of time and you hold them and you roast them at a later date, roasting them to a certain profile. I mean, all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I understood the art of it. And I started to appreciate what coffee meant. And then I understood the value of what it meant to the economy in different countries and to our GDP and so on and so forth. And then you start realizing this is a space.
Yeah. An impact. Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I will take a concept from there to there all the way versus a person who comes in and goes, I'm marketing. There's a singularity.
Right.
I'm only marketing.
Right.
But when you're an owner and you're an entrepreneur and you're an innovator and a visionary, you're wide and you bring it to a singularity, a point that drives you to purpose and action. And then you have to put your blinders on because you can get everybody on the outside being naysayers about it. And then you have to determine how far you want to take it.
And that's where the courage comes into play.
Courage. I love that.
Right. I think for courage to take the leap, courage to believe in the self, courage to keep going. Right. That's why I love what I do, love the circles that I get to go into, because entrepreneurs to me are the superhumans of the planet. They're why the world gets innovation. They're how people get to take care of their families. They're where change happens. You name it. And it starts from the courage of individuals to go step in to do X, to do Y, or you thought I was going to do Z, well, I'm doing B. And that's what's going to be the change, because so much disruption comes from But people are too close in to see what's possible when you can step out here. That's why I love. They're my superhumans.
Right. I love that word. I didn't think about that, and I use words like resilient, determined, and all these things, but courage. That is probably a really powerful word that I think I don't hear as much by entrepreneurs, because you're going to sacrifice, you're going to fail, you're going to get the backroom chatter, and people are going to look at you as like you just reinvented something that didn't exist. Anyone goes and look at some of the greatest people, most of the greatest people who have ever succeeded, stop looking at the success. It's the failure. I even heard one gentleman say, they say, why don't you take time to enjoy your success? It says, I don't need to attend my success. I need to attend my failures.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll let you go over there and enjoy that. I need to go over here and deal with the stuff that's not working.
Yeah.
And every entrepreneur is going to find that. And once I started to understand, to not worry about the chatter, and understand that part of success means you will fail. And because I've been to the bottom, not just once, but a few times, even post-career, after a successful NFL career, I don't fear it. I respect it. But I understand it's not permanent unless you make it. And I understand that the risks that I take are a part of the journey, because I'm trying to do something great. You don't fail and hit bottom like that unless you're daring to do something great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just go get a job.
Yeah.
Make sure you're on time at work, punch your check, punch your clock, go in, go out, be good at your job, which is great. Climb the ladder, do whatever you need to do, and then you're cool, and manage your money.
Yeah.
But if you're like me and you're someone who's saying, you know what, I have a destination of purpose that is bigger than what I did even playing sports. Sports is just a blip. I mean, right now to me, it's cool. It's been cool. It's great. It's great to connect with the fans. But this next thing that I'm doing, I wouldn't change, even the failures, because it has grown me in a way that unless I experienced it, I don't think I'd have the same vision that I have right now in terms of how I look at the world. It's simple. It's a lot simpler to me than what it's been. I think the things that we put a lot of stress on, and we stress on every day, and we worry about every day, it's really not as big or bad as you think it is. It's only because you fear it because you don't know it.
I was just at a conference, and I'll plug it again, the Visionary Summit, a couple of weeks ago, and really the main topic was about being a thought leader, and really stepping into that, because so many of us don't believe that we might be a thought leader, or oh, my ideas aren't that great, I just do it not right. And it's about stepping into that. And one of the analogies that someone made, a good friend, John Magney, I'll tell him, was we all, because we're not stepping into that, we're scared of not doing social media, you name it, whatever we're not stepping into how we are. You said cage earlier. People put you in a cage. Well, most of us have that cage around us that we create.
Right.
And we realize that cage we're a tiger in a cage, and that cage isn't locked. And actually, when you stop thinking about it, the cage isn't even there. We put it there, right? That holds us back. So going back to I love, your words of resiliency or determination. That's once you're already in it. Mm-hmm. Courage is what has you take that first step.
That's it.
And then the rest of it keeps coming. But the courage is just taking that first step.
Yeah, it is. And I will definitely be using that, I'm telling you, going forward, because I've always looked for that word. You look for that one that kind of sums it all up. And it becomes that badge that you can say, wear this. Mm-hmm. And if you wear that badge of courage, I'm trying to think of what can't you do and what you won't try.
Yeah.
All right. Where's the cage? There's no cage, right? And even if you're in it, you'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Because if you're coward, or if you give up or you quit, you'll sit in it. But if you have the courage to say, you know what, I'm gonna at least go try and see if the door is unlocked, or even see if this cage really exists. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty powerful one. I love when I can find and hear those words that resonate with journey. And mm-hmm. with my journey, it has been about courage. It's been about coming in even as a receiver. No big receivers had really been in the league. Jerry Rice, 6'1", 6'2", maybe. Michael Irvin, 6'2", Chris Carter, 6'2". who had this success, and then all of a sudden you got a 6'4", 6'5" guy. He's between a wide receiver and a tight end. It's again, how does he work? But then you start changing the league because people don't realize they start changing how you guard me, how you guard a big guy, and then you start seeing the success, and you start seeing the big receivers start to come in, and now every team needed a big receiver at Z and a big playmaker and a guy that could disrupt and challenge and do those things. And again, that's continued to be my fabric. I do it without apology because you're going to rub the people who are weak. And I say this, and this isn't a criticism. And the other thing I've had to learn in business is not to necessarily apologize for speaking the truth. And in return, I ask for the truth back. And sometimes it's hard to get that in a world where a lot happens behind closed doors. So I've found that a lot of times collaboration is tough without transparency. And even to a fault, I will let people know, you know what, just so you know, I've had failures, right? Yeah. Just so you know, I take risks. Just so you know, I do have an opinion, and I do have the ability. When I want to run, I want to run, you know, and that type of deal. But I will tell you this: I would be diligent. I will do heavy research. I will make sure that I've done everything in my possible power to mitigate a negative outcome. But my effort will be my effort, right? And then you just match up with the right people, and sometimes that's oil and water, depending on if they're risk aversion and adverse, and that kind of thing. So it's just like I said, it's a constant journey of learning, and I love the fact that I never feel like I have to stop learning.
Yeah. I mean, you can't, right? You know, actually, I want to go back to something that caught me, and I know it's one of those things where I could be a crybaby, and like you said, transparency. When you're dealing in a negotiation with lack of transparency, or you're dealing with someone internally with lack of transparency, or people perceive that you have a lack of transparency in leadership, and it's just unfortunate that people feel like they have to be misleading in order to get the best out of someone, or to get the better, right? Versus a harmonious, hey, there's a way we can all win, or don't even worry about the win and lose part. How about we can all strive here? That if people just opened up the kimono and talked through things, we all could. But everyone's got to get one up on someone. I don't know why I just went on that soapbox.
But think about this. If you look at the advent of creative content right now, when the networks controlled it and monopolized it, and they said you only could come through us to put out creative stuff, they had hit or misses all over the place. And it was costly. It was expensive. It was, you just don't know if you got it right. You couldn't really hedge. You couldn't do anything. Then all of a sudden the content creators started to get on these platforms where they could create short form, long form, do all these things. You could see it. If I saw this back in early 2005, 2010, when I started seeing how people were going in and doing UGC, user generated content. And I said, at some point, they're going to become the creators that the networks need, and the big studios need their content, and they're going to be asking them, and they can't create content. It's going to actually flip. And you fast forward to now, again, that's what happened, because to your point, they collaborated. They brought each other on each other's show. Star Power went cross-platform. You could take one person to build another person's platform or show, and all the way they bypassed all the red tape and all the no's and all the egos that were along the way. So now anyone who wants to put something up and want to have an opinion and have a voice and do content can do it for the most part.
Yeah.
And so I see that happening. I wish that would happen in business, where people understand, it's just, we're all trying to do it for the same reason. We're all contributing to the same economy. We're in, whether it's complementary industries or whether we're in industries that there's opportunity for us to share the population of clients that are looking for us to bring and deliver a more consistent product. But you can't get people to do that. It's the division that keeps us from growing.
It is. It's the you win or I win, you lose mentality.
Yeah.
Right? I want to translate to fast forward to what else. How many ventures do you have going on right now?
So to understand my ventures can be quite confusing to people. Everyone goes,
we don't have to go into all.
Yeah, no, people will go, well, I don't know what you do. And I'll ask them, I'll start with this and I'll say, tell me about what you do in business, right? So let's say that they say they are a small entrepreneur and they have a product, and it's products or services. I say, tell me the components of that. You have sales, right? Something needs to generate sales, okay. You have something that you make, like manufacture or product that you sell, yeah. You market that business, and you have social and do all those things. Do you need digital content? Do you have employees, or is it just fathom people, or poof is in the air or whatever? And I break down all these things, and I said, now take that, and there's this concept called being vertically integrated, meaning you have a lot of these major components and you break down the anatomy of business. So the first thing I've done over the years, I've learned there's always been a problem at every angle in every business I've had until I've culminated to creating a parent company. And I said, one thing I wanted to do is I want to get as many of those processes in-house that we own the process, but not just own them, but owning them with excellence, whether it's through partnerships, whether it's through we actually own equity, or whether we own businesses. And then you build the businesses around that. And then any business I put inside of that system, it strives in our ecosystem. It allows us to be vertically integrated. It allows us to be dependent on ourselves and our systems internally. But then we have scalability, and we can also share that with other organizations we work with. When you break it down like that versus what companies do you own, how many processes do you own in the business that you run? I can say we own probably 90%. And then the others we have, how do you keep them at bay? Well, we have patents, we have intellectual property, we have copyrights, we have different things that give us a competitive edge or a way to keep people at bay, or other competitors, if we want to call them that. And then the other one is, what's your secret sauce? Efficiencies, scalability, all those things. But the toughest part is, again, if I go in and say that, just like I just told you, and when I said, well, you said, well, just give me a few. Yeah. But if I break it down to you and I say, those are the things you need, you will go, yeah, you need all those things. And if you can have those, it seems like it'd be a competitive advantage for you in the market. People will understand that. But if I go, I own this business, this business, this business, this business, well, I don't really know who you are and what you do. And I don't know if you really own those and you could do those things. But I go, you're not listening. So I have to say less, take the risk of being categorized however they see it as being less, versus saying these are all independent companies that have their own operating teams and systems, but I can bring them all together at any time to have a one system company, or they can operate independently with their own standard operations and procedures and all this other stuff. And they only think that these big mastermind MBA wealthy people are the only people that are capable of that concept. And I still to this day cannot get those to see that. Think about that. I haven't said anything that is like earth shattering right now. No. Makes sense. And all the big companies do it. So you follow their model. And even when you explain that model to them, it doesn't make sense, because how can you do that? Yeah. It's impossible. How can you do that? And I go, come take a look at it. Can't even get them to come see it. And then I spent all this time building and building and building. You put a lot of time and extra resources into it. And sometimes it just caused a lot of failure, because you can't get people to come in and utilize the system you put in place because they don't see it or believe in it. And, it's one of those deals. So I've been in the business of me and my team, been in the business of partnerships that understand what we're trying to do, and I work exclusively with them versus trying to throw a wide net. Okay. You got to go where the action is. You got to go with the people who are willing to work with you, and keep the noise on the outside. And I've always heard that, keep the noise low, keep the signal high. And so my signal is I'm trying to operate at that 70, 80, 90%, if I don't want a social life, signal. And the noise, family, friends, external things, hobbies, you keep those on the perimeter, and you get to those as you need it based on what your ambitions are. So I'm at about 80, 85%. So I'm highly in tune with just wanting to do business and keep solving problems, because my kids are older. I don't have the responsibility that some of the younger people may have if they have younger families. So it gives me the ability to put more into my signal than into than worrying about the noise.
Wow. That's obviously what I generally love to transition into, is like the roles that we play obviously in business, and then how does that happen with family, community, and things like that. And like Finn, for me in my season, I've got mid to young kids, so I have to have the noise has to be there is a lot of noise from many different angles, right? And if I'm traveling more, or if I'm not, right, managing through that. But then there's the season of you've done that season, right? And your kids are now off a different space. So now, again, you can choose to get that focus in whichever, you have to have focus somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
So
and like, again, I mean, I'd say if I had to change anything, I wish I could do more is be, I try really hard. I go hard in the paint. And I spend a lot of time, money, resources into trying to get new relationships, service those relationships. And I think a lot of times people don't realize if they don't work out, they don't realize the wake that's left when they leave or they don't come through. Mm-hmm. And then as a small business owner or a business owner our size, it can be catastrophic to where we have to go back to the bottom and start over and deal with the fallout. And then you're not going to go around explaining, well, why didn't that work or what happened? I mean, it's just too much to get into because there's detail. Mm-hmm. And you just kind of let the noise be the noise. And I've learned how to put that signal on there and just say, it's part of business. Some things work, some things don't.
Yeah. So what do you think has really helped you, as you were explaining, putting those processes in place, the systems, is it really taking down a lot that you learned from the franchise, some of the different franchises you've had? Because that's really what you're buying in a franchise too, is right, their systems and processes. Is it that? Is there other operating systems, reading? How are you where you are right now with your systems and process and people and roles and all that?
It's actually a great question because it's a combination of things. It's learned experience, lived experience. It's going in through trial and error in some things and refinement of myself as a person, changing my mentality, and also adjusting based on industry, based on really the circumstances and the reality of what we live in. So how do you get the most out of that, whether it be shortage in labor or skilled labor, attitudes, egos, life that people have, and also how do I continue to grow me as a person who leads from that position, because that comes with a responsibility and a playbook. The other part has really been, I think, more or less just staying true to exactly who I am and what I'm capable of doing, and realizing that I can't give up that control of being ambitious because others can't see it. And I think the biggest thing that I had to shed is, if you don't get it, it's okay. When I'm telling you my story, when I'm telling you what my goals and my ambitions are and my thing, maybe that's just not meant for you. Yeah. And versus all of a sudden you get off of your track. I think we put too much into people who don't care and haven't sown into who we are as people, and we value their opinion far greater than we should, just because I don't need you to say, Herman told me I should catch with my hands because of this, because he was an all-pro wide receiver and all those things. Some of those things you got to validate for yourself. Yeah. And you have to determine if that's, if that's true or not. And so I've learned not to take everything at face value. I've learned to definitely listen, because it's true. If you're talking, you can't be listening at the same time. And that was something I had to really learn over the last past couple decades too. And I've always been a learner, but I've always been a person who wants to lead. But that's been the part that I think I've been most proud of, and just respect. And I told you before, man, the value of people, the value of the individual that you're talking to, and if you ask them to reciprocate, and you say, you know what, I need you to be a mirror, I'm gonna be a mirror. If I smile, I want to smile. If I'm treating you kind, you got to be kind. If I'm saying we're gonna work hard, let's work hard. Let's both work hard, and let's carry the weight. And so yeah, I'm enjoying the journey. I love empowerment. I love motivation, and all these other things. But this has been nice though. The journey I wouldn't change. And again, before, man, it's been an experience that I could take any one part of it, spend a whole day talking on it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's been that type of a journey.
Well, you can tell, right? The smile hasn't left your face, right? and we've been talking business, right?
I love business.
Great. Yeah.
I've been doing it longer than I played sports.
Yeah.
Believe it or not now. So This is, the people don't realize is I've made more revenue doing business and that I ever made in sports, and I've been doing this longer than any career.
Yeah. Wow. I want to circle back real quick. You were talking about not worrying about what people think, right? And not getting caught up in having to make sure they understand where you are, where you're coming from, and thinking about how much time and energy that humans spend in that loop of trying to get that accomplishment or that pat on the back or whatever. What comes back to, again, that word we use, courage.
Right.
Courage that you got the right thing going. Just go do it.
Right. And if you're trying to convince people, you're talking to the wrong people, but also there's something that's missing, and you may want to go back and reassess if you're in the right space. But yeah, the courage piece is paramount. That's what makes you get up in the morning. That's what's going to make you come back in the hard times. The passion is going to keep you going as well. But man, that courage, that's powerful.
Yeah. Well, hey, and real quick, just because I do owe you some gratitude for allowing us to use this space and give whatever opportunity for you to talk about maybe what you've got going on here with what you're willing to say here in this space. I
appreciate it. So what we end up doing is wanted to create a creative hub for creators, and we talked earlier about branding. And it starts with being able to sit down and on camera or have an opportunity, to say who you are and what you do, what your goals are. Drives a different type of accountability. Are you going to live those words in that fabric that you're projecting? And with this, I always wanted a place where I can come in and create content. Marketing and media is expensive, but it has tremendous value that can grow at insane levels if you come out with authenticity. I've had to mask because I'm an athlete, because I'm a person that's a public figure. You have to, people will think that you're authentic in some ways in what you do, which I am. I love to smile. I'm a friendly guy. I'm all these, but at the same time, I'm very serious about some things. I hold people accountable. I have problems. I talk about them. I talk directly to people with confidence and assuredness that we need to get this ironed out, right? And here it allows me to be free. And when I come in, I can create businesses. I can create businesses within businesses. I can maximize and put value on my time different than others value it, because I'm doing everything that is derived in purpose. And so when I build the studios, if you were to walk through every single one of these rooms in here and you say, what is this room for? I can tell you from start to finish, everything that it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be used, what the potential of that room could be, who should be utilizing that room, what, the detail of it. And in doing that, it is giving me, like I had on football and in sports, it's the confidence in knowing that you've done your homework. And therefore, when I say either you're talking to someone, they get it, it's fine.
Yeah.
If they don't, it's okay.
Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you want to go further on, like for here, what this space is, again, allowing for creators, and again, it's going to be open for others to come soon. And so I hope that, I know that your ventures that you're working on here are going to be exciting.
Yeah. And just the ventures here is just getting a lot of the content creators come in and getting partnerships to come in that have services that we don't overlap, but we're very synergistic and complementary service in terms of consulting and the different services that we provide and products that we provide. But then the other room is got I call it like the broadcast ESPN or the live news type desk setup. Then you have the sit down area here where you can bring in different themes and things of that nature. And then you get the podcast rooms that we have where you get people to come in and do one-on-ones or do single shots or different things that they want to do. And you open it up and you give them access. That's the thing that I felt that I've been missing, and people think I can just keep buying my way through it. You run out of money, right? So it gets to be expensive. So I try and really figure out, how do you remove the barriers? How do you make it affordable, and how do you sow into others? that perhaps, I didn't get the opportunity to get, even though people think that everyone's just opening their doors wide open for someone like me, and that's just not the case. But I'm going to make sure I provide access.
Awesome.
That's it.
That's great. That's the way of the world, right? Is free access content, right? It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you again so much. I do like to close with a failure, a mistake, a misstep. I don't like using dirty words, but right, a mess up that you've had personally, business, that others could learn from.
Man, there's, again, as an entrepreneur, it's like, put all of it in a hat, and then just pick one, and each one's going to have a lesson, but a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be, I think, as an athlete, and I say this in all honesty, it's the perception that people have of athletes, and the fact that they go through and they get all this access, this money, and all these things, and that they make stupid mistakes and they lose it. I'm here to tell you, that's happened to me, right? To where I've gone in and I've done those things and I've lost everything and had to build it back, had lost it and build it back. Mm. And it's not because of trying, it's because of trusting. Mm. And it was trusting the people who were the ones that were supposed to manage and do those things. But you're always going to be the one left holding the bag. And so what I've had to continue to learn is that at the end, you're going to be the one that's got to answer the questions, not the people who you paid and the people that helped you make the decisions. They go on with their lives. They go on and they leave that baggage with you. So only thing I say in that is I've learned to say, if I'm going to do it, I'll take accountability for it. So anyone that they see that if I've had a failure, I go in and say, I failed. I did it. Yeah. If I go in and something didn't work out right, I go and talk to that person and I apologize. And I go, you know what? I wish it hadn't worked out this way. And I tell you that on the failure side because, of course, I've had some wins. I still having wins. I have some tremendous wins I'm having. Yeah. But those failures are the ones that I still feel bad about because you know that it impacts someone somewhere and you hope they understand. Not all do, and it's okay. It's part of the business. Mm-hmm. But if one thing is honesty and transparency in it. Mm. And so I'm here to tell people, don't look at me as this professional athlete and you got all this unlimited sources of money. I don't. Mm-hmm. I failed just like everyone else. I've gone through those tough times. I've gone through the financial turmoil. But at the end of it, courage. Yeah. And get back up.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of my good friends that was on early on, because when I was hearing you say some things, his was, as the entrepreneur, in the end, no one's going to be there to catch you.
All right.
Right. So you got to know that's a possibility of
100%
falling and keep going.
And keep your character with you when you do it. So that's why I smile. I don't, it's not that it'd be, I'm here and I got some loving people around me. I've met some tremendous people along the way. Great communities here in the state that I'm living in now, the one that I was born in Virginia. And I won't sacrifice that for any amount of money in the world.
Awesome. Well, you've meant a great deal and continue to mean a great deal far beyond your playing days for the people here in Michigan. So thank you.
Absolute pleasure.
How can we help you and your businesses, not necessarily connect with you, but how do we connect your businesses? Is there something that, beneficial way to see all those and help them flourish?
Well, for me, from a personal place, I love doing keynotes and corporate speaking. I do a lot of executive coaching and training, do a lot of empowerment and stuff like that for youth. So anytime someone's looking for that and wanting to reach out and get some great stories, but get it with substance and lived experience, I'm that person. The other one is looking to collaborate with any of the services that we have. And some of those I didn't mention, or we're a contract manufacturer. So if you're looking for cosmetics or liquid goods or candles or hot pours, personal care brands and all those things, we do those. If you're looking for print on demand services, we can do it at scale, whether you want to do it localized, regionally, nationally, or globally. We have those capabilities to do that and do that at like I said, scale. We want you to try and outscale us. And any of the digital content, utilization of our studios and our services, reach out to us and connect with us on those things. We look for relationships and partnerships. It's not all about money. So we're willing to work with those and work within their budgets, but more importantly, focus on what is their destination and what is their purpose, and let's start there before we talk money, and let's see how we can work together.
Love it. And we'd be lucky enough to do business with you. Herman, thank you so much. Really had a ball.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
All right. That's a wrap.
Thanks for tuning in to The Roll Call with John Glahn. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe for more insightful conversations. Remember, discovering your true role in life is a journey worth exploring each and every day. Until next time, keep defining your path and living your authentic self. This is John Glahn signing off.